Moments ago, President Biden departed for that rally in Madison, Wisconsin. You see him there. It was just a little bit ago, and he stepped out of the beast. He declared he could beat Donald Trump. The only part about that is the New York Times Siena poll disagrees. The Wall Street Journal poll disagrees. Heck, his own Biden super PAC disagrees because they leaked their polling to the New York Times, showing President Biden right there trailing in New Mexico, New Hampshire, and Virginia. So the facts aren't on his side there, expressing confidence, no less, as he heads off to the biggest interview of his life. Well, that incredible statement comes just hours after CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, said that Biden needs to get a cognitive test.
You know, first of all, this is not a political essay, it's a medical one. I think that the question really being raised is, have we been looking at episodes, intermittent episodes, or is this reflective of some sort of deeper underlying condition? If you take a look, slow response time, I think we saw that, you know, sort of in a sustained fashion. Definitive word retrieval mix-ups, rambling, sometimes confused speech, reduced voice volume as well, and reduced facial movements. And these things can all be connected. We often think of cognition simply being memory, but if someone has an underlying movement disorder, for example, that can actually affect cognition in the sense that people may have more flattened affect, face, and not really be speaking as quickly or as loudly. Now, if he were my patient, if he were my dad, frankly, I would want to get more testing done, cognitive testing and more detailed movement disorder testing as well.
Cheryl, he said if it were my dad, I would want a cognitive test. And it makes you wonder, has Joe Biden asked for this? Has Hunter Biden asked for this? Has anyone in the family?
I'm the daughter of someone that is going through this right now. I will tell you this, I would do anything for my mother, but the first thing that I did was I wanted a diagnosis and I wanted clarity. And I'm still working on that to this day, and it's heartbreaking. That's what you do as a child for your parents. What they're doing right now is wrong. It is sad to watch. You know, Hunter Biden sitting there in all these meetings, help your father and convince him that he needs to get a correct diagnosis, which he obviously does not have. Is it vascular dementia? I know a lot about this topic. Is it age-related dementia? Is it early onset Alzheimer's? You need to have a correct diagnosis to treat the person. Yeah. It is cruel to not get a correct diagnosis for this meeting.
Absolutely. And, you know, my heart breaks for the family. We all want our president to be healthy. The problem is the national security implications. The problem is the economist question. If you can't complete a sentence about Medicare, should you be holding the nuclear football? It's a good question. But, Joe, you know, when you think about this, we've been told that he runs faster than his younger aides who can't keep up, that he's healthier than everyone around him. So then why not take the test?
Right. That would solve the problem, right? Or why not do the press conference that we talked about before? And remember the media narrative before that debate that actually in private, Joe Biden's really like John Nash, right? He's doing quadratic equations. He's explaining how the flux capacitor works and 1.21 gigawatts. So this whole narrative just has completely blown up at this point. But to the national security implications, when you consider that the world is on fire right now, Gaza, Ukraine, Russia, we had 8 individuals from ISIS-K just arrested last month in New York, San Francisco, and D.C., I believe, right? More than 10 million people have crossed into this country alone during this president's watch because of Joe Biden and because of his border czar, Kamala Harris, including hundreds that have been apprehended that are on the terror watch list. Yeah. They're paying attention to all of this, and that's why, joking aside, all things aside, this man not only needs to step aside as far as being the Democratic nominee, that doesn't mean he gets to be president still for the next 200 days. He has to step down altogether.
You know, and you want to take the White House at their word. You want to believe the information they're giving you. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But when you read in New York Magazine that there was this elaborate lie, they literally called it a lie that has been covered up. When Wednesday, the press secretary told us he did not have a medical exam after the debate. Yesterday, the press secretary's office admitted he did. It was not accurate information. It makes you, I think it's fair to ask, has he had a cognitive test? And we don't know about it. I have no indication that he has, but I do think it's a fair question. in light of what we've been told.
Absolutely. And you know, this wasn't just one lie. This is actually a massive conspiracy to deceive the public, to deceive the American people. And I don't think that they understand the extent of the damage that they've done, not just to their own credibility, but also to Democrats' future political chances. Because I think that a lot of swing state voters, such as those back in my home state of Michigan, are looking at what's unfolding right now, and they're starting to ask the question, what else have I been lied to about? What about Hunter Biden's laptop? What about Joe Biden's alleged involvement in all those shady foreign business deals? What about the idea that Jill Biden is actually responsible for a lot of harm to her husband right now? All of these things that we've been saying for a long time that they've been told are just right-wing conspiracies, when actually it turns out that the Democrats and their lackeys in the media have been the ones lying to the public about this the entire time. And that was exposed in the debate between Biden and Trump. And now you have a lot of people who are realizing that, and their eyes are being opened to just how great this conspiracy to deceive them has been.
Nicole, and I mean, if he does take the cognitive test that Sanjay Gupta requests, then you have to have a plan in place should he fail it. I don't know if that's him willingly stepping aside or cabinet intervening with the 25th Amendment or Congress pursuing impeachment if they don't. I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but you would have to have a plan in place.
Oh, absolutely, because we cannot have someone, you know, again, the commander-in-chief who knowingly is not passing a cognitive test. This is what we've been asking for years. I know that I've been very curious. And again, they say, oh, in February, he took a physical test and he passed it with 20 doctors saying, hey, you know, he's fine, he's good. Well, again, President Trump took a cognitive test at the end of 2023, and he passed with flying colors. He aced it. So again, you see the contrast between the two. And, you know, this representative that he was calling out her name at a meeting September 2022, and a woman who passed away in a car accident, she wasn't even there. Jackie, where are you? Jackie, where are you? That's alarming. That's alarming. A woman who is dead, he's not aware.
It is alarming. And Politico saying that it was actually in the teleprompter that she had passed. So we'll see. The reporting keeps breaking. Up next, new reports revealing which members of Biden's inner circle are telling the president to fire his staff, stay in the race.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.